All right. Greetings, everybody. Welcome. This presentation is the Yes, Sir, the framework for transformative communication. In this presentation, you're going to learn how to communicate. Just keep it simple, right? If you guys know me, I don't like to keep things complicated. I like to make it as easy and simple and applicable as possible. For those who don't know me, I am Dr. Keith Anthony Fairclough Jr. I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I work with couples, men and women, but specifically with couples, I work with helping them to learn how to communicate so they can understand one another, speak with one another without there being conflict, without there being misunderstandings, so that they can build a healthy, strong, and loving relationship. I'm not going to belabor any points. I'm going to try to go through this presentation as efficiently as possible. And again, if you have any questions, regarding anything, please feel free to reach out to me. If you're receiving this, then you probably have my email address or phone number. So reach out if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or we can address this in session. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Right. Okay. Let's make sure. Okay. All right. So why words matter in your relationship. And so you can see the numbers here and everything, and you can read that. I'm not going to read anything verbatim, but why words matter in a relationship is because we have messages we're trying to convey. The whole purpose of communication is we're trying to convey a message to the other person. Anyone you're communicating with, that is the purpose of the communication. You have a message, you're trying to get it to them. And so, there's no relationship that's more important than that of marriage or an intimate relationship, right? I mean, ultimately marriage, but there may be people who are just dating or they're engaged, and maybe they're struggling with communication, but there is no relationship that is as important as that between a man and a woman, right? Seeking to become one and really just have a life together. And so communication is critical. In order to understand each other and to reach those deeper depths and to get closer and be more intimate. And especially as we get older, intimacy isn't all about, I'm talking about physical intimacy now. Physical intimacy isn't all about, just the physical, right? It's about a lot of the mental. There's a lot, it's connecting, it's knowing each other on a deeper spiritual level where but you can't get there unless you communicate. See, communication's the bridge. Communication's the vehicle by which we're able to get our emotions and thoughts and feelings to the other person so they can understand us, because the two deepest human needs that we have is to be understood and to be accepted. And so in order to do that, though, we need the vehicle of communication to do so. And an example I was thinking about before doing this presentation was like a communication being the vehicle, right? The car that helps us get to our destination. Now the car in and of itself is not the end all be all, right? So when I say this, because communication, a lot of people I work with and couples that come to me, they say, oh, communication, we have communication issues, and if we can fix that, everything is going to be perfect. Not necessarily, right? But I will say this, it's so much easier to make it to your destination if your vehicle is working properly. And therefore, in a relationship, if communication is the vehicle, then it's so much easier to resolve your issues when it comes to money, when it comes to intimacy, when it comes to parenting, when it comes to upbringing, when it comes to, you name it, investments, jobs, moving, in-laws, whatever. If the vehicle is working properly, then it's so much easier to get to exactly where we're trying to go. But imagine, and maybe some of you actually had this happen. Imagine every time you get in your car, you don't know if you're making your destination or not. You could be going right around the corner to go to the store, and you're concerned maybe you will break down. Sometimes it gets to the point where you don't even want to use the car. That's exactly what it's like when we don't have good communication in our relationships. It's the exact same way. I don't even know if I want to even bring this small thing up. She might trip. He might blow up. It might turn into an argument, turn into a fight. It happened before. And what do you think happens if we don't learn how to communicate? Of course, the relationship starts to deteriorate, starts to fall apart. And if it starts to fall apart, then what do you got? And it doesn't matter how much love you have for one another. If you cannot communicate, if you can't get to your destination, doesn't matter how badly you want to get to that destination. Doesn't matter how much you believe in that destination. You'll never get there. So if you cannot communicate, if you don't understand why words matter in your relationship, then you'll never be able to have the relationship that you've always dreamed of, that love. You don't know where one begins, the other one ends, the depth, the connection, the safety, the all of that. You'll never have that because you need the vehicle to get there. And communication is the vehicle. The communication gets my message to you so that you can understand it. But again, there's parts to this, and I don't want to jump ahead, but this is why words matter in our relationships. And again, I don't want to read, just from the slides or whatnot. You can, read the slides, and we'll get into some of these later on, we'll get into some of these things later on, but this is why words are so important. This is why communication is so critically important in your relationship. Again, it's not everything, but it is very, very important. And you cannot do anything else without proper communication. All right. So this is what we're going to cover today. And now this I'll probably read from because I'm not trying to memorize it, right? So you're going to learn the yes, sir framework. And we're going to go into it. It's simple. It's practical. Teaches you how to take turns. And again, we'll go into it. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I usually have a bad habit of doing that, right? We're going to talk about the power of listening. Listening is the most important aspect of communication because the thing is, if you're not listening to understand, you're never going to know how to respond properly to your partner, right? Speaking responsibly. Now, while listening is most important, speaking is important as well, because if you don't know how to convey a message the right way, no matter how well intentioned that message is, it's going to be misinterpreted and you're not going to get your message across. We're going to talk about avoiding communication traps, and that's basically some harmful patterns that exist. And we'll talk about that, what those 4 harmful patterns are. And we're going to talk about some of the practice. And obviously, because this is a recorded presentation, we're not going to be able to do the practice. We're going to run over some of the exercises that you guys can do in your relationship so that you can start having healthier communication, start putting this into practice. Okay. So this is the framework, right? I'm sorry. Let me make sure you guys there you go. So this is the framework, the yes, sir framework, right? It's something that I created. I actually started with the SERR part, with just the I statements, but then with some work and help with AI and things like that, I was able to develop the yes part, right? I was able to organize. I was able to organize all of my information, speaking and listening, all that stuff into something that and something that you guys could use, something that was helpful, right? And so the yes part is the listening. And as you can see, yield the floor, which means you allow your partner to speak. And this is not your turn to speak. This is your turn to just, hey, you're the speaker, I'm the listener. And then as we listen, we empathize. And then as we go through it, when we ask our questions, we then summarize and confirm with our partner to see if what we have brought in, the message that they have given us, if our understanding matches what the message is. Right? And then the SERR, right? The SERR is I statements. SERR stands for situation, emotion, reason, request. And again, we'll go through all of these. These are the I statements. This is how you want to convey a message without accusation, criticism, or blame, right? So that because if you are making sure you communicate without accusations or blame or criticism, it's much more likely that your message is going to get across to your partner without there being defensiveness. We're also going to, so yes is putting your partner first, right? And SERR is being able to speak clearly and effectively so they can receive your message the right way. Okay. So now, okay. So the yes mindset. So listen first. So like I said, the why is to yield the floor. That means you are giving your partner the platform to speak completely. This is not you interjecting. This is not you trying to change different facts. It's not you trying to do anything that you are giving them the floor completely to speak. You are not interrupting. You are allowing them to speak. All right. The next part, you're going to empathize. That means to empathize does not mean you agree. I cannot stress this enough. When you validate someone and empathize with them, it does not mean you agree with them. It simply means I understand why you are thinking or feeling the way you are. That's it. That's all empathy and all validating is, because I've seen so many people get caught up in like, well, what if I don't believe that or I don't agree with that? You don't have to. It's not your perspective. Your job is just to understand where they're coming from and to see how that thought process, that perspective can generate that emotion. That's it. You don't have to agree. You just have to understand, okay, I see where you're coming from with that. And the last part is to summarize and confirm. This is critical. I've seen couples do the first two parts like pros, and they get to this last part and they skip it and they completely miss it. Everything else goes out the window. And I can't tell you how many times they say, yeah, I understand. And they start talking. It's like, that's not what I was talking about at all. You didn't understand. That's why it's so critical, so critical to summarize what you have heard and confirm it with your partner. This is what I'm hearing you say. Is that accurate? Is that correct? Let them confirm. You cannot switch the roles until you get it right. Because if you don't know where they're coming from, then you're not going to know how to respond. You're not going to know how to meet their needs. You're not going to. It's impossible. So again, yes is yield the floor. And we'll talk about with some of these, there's some more aspects to this listening as well. But yes is to yield the floor. Let your partner speak. Give them the floor. It's not your turn to, well, let me show you my perspective. No. Let your partner speak. And then you empathize with them. You ask them questions, and then once you think you understand, you summarize it and then confirm it with them. And if they say, yeah, that's it, then boom, you got it. But if they say, no, not necessarily, then ask, which part am I missing? And allow them to correct whatever part's missing. Okay. Now let's go on to the next slide. All right. So some real world examples, right? Now this, I'll read off the slide, right? So here's the situation. You've been on your phone all evening, and it feels like I'm just background noise to you. Here's a poor response. And then trust me, it can get a lot worse than this, and we've all been there before. I'm just checking work emails. You know how busy I am. Plus, you're watching TV anyways. That's a defensive response, right? Okay. So, and again, we've all been there. We've all been there where we get defensive and, then we want to fire back. This is a yes response. Okay. So when I was on my phone tonight, you felt ignored and unimportant. You wanted to connect after work. Did I understand that correctly? And not defensive, not trying to, do anything like that. I'm getting what you said. I'm summarizing it and I'm confirming it with you. Right. And then the person's going to be like, yeah, no, that's what it is. I just really want to spend time with you. I love you. I know your job is important. I would never want to pull you away from that, but I just miss you. I've been missing you all day, and I'll just leave it at that because I could go into different stories, but I don't want to drag this out longer than it needs to be. I want to really get to the part where you guys can start putting this into practice and learning with your partner. Right. So let us read this. Notice how the yes response doesn't yet offer explanations or defenses. It simply confirms understanding. So here's the thing. Once this is confirmed and your wife or your husband says that, right, then it switches. Now they get to listen. You could say, I hear where you're coming from. However, I'm not even going to say however. I can see why you would think that, and honestly, it's just I've been stressed out with work. There's this really big meeting and I got this email that came through and it's just stressing me out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even focus at home right now. I just got to get it done. So it had me like really pressed, And so that's why I was, that's why I was on my phone, what I was doing. And I saw you doing that. And I think I heard you say some things, but for me, I was just so caught up. Right. Now I guess what your partner can get to say. Oh, so I hear. I didn't know that you had that going on at work. I can imagine how getting that message or getting that that deal not going through, or how much stress that must put on you. And I know you're already under a lot of stress at work. Man, that must be really hard. Is that what you got going on? Yeah, that's what I got going on. It's just a lot, and I'm sorry for not spending time with you. I know we said we're going to spend time together. You see how that was just everything, right? That you flipping it and all that. That's how conversations are supposed to go. That's how we can do it if we start embodying these practices on a regular basis. All right. So it's so critical to listen, to understand, and not respond, because when we do that, we can connect with our partner better. Just like in this example, and here they were able to connect with their partner, with understanding that, oh, you just want to spend time with me. You felt unimportant and ignored. Their goal was not to make them feel unimportant and ignored, right? Their goal was because they were stressed out with that situation. But they can understand why they would feel unimportant and ignored. And then now when they share their perspective, now your partner now understands why you were on your phone and doing those things and checking those emails, because you had all that stuff going on. So this is how it works. We can get closer. Both people understand one another. They get closer. And here's the thing, conflict, the whole purpose of conflict is for us to learn more about one another and get closer. It's not to be this knockdown, drag out fight. It's for we hit these walls. And again, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Or maybe you're just getting a bonus, but we hit these walls. And these walls aren't designed for us to beat each other up. These walls are designed for us to, okay, we slow down, understand where each other's coming from, each other's perspectives, and then guess what? We break those walls down and we get closer, right? We're either getting deeper or we're getting higher, however you want to look at your relationship, right? I like saying deeper because it's like deep intimacy. That means you're getting closer. It's like, whatever, So that's what this can do for you, all right? Now let's head on to the next slide. All right. Now, so how to listen like you really care. So that first part, that why, the yielding the floor, this is the first part. You got to remove all distractions. Come off the TV, come off the phone, come off. And also, before I even get into that, and maybe I'm jumping the gun, but I just want to put this out here as well. Just because your partner is there doesn't mean they're ready to have a deep conversation. Let me say it again. Just because they're there, they seem like they're not doing anything important, does not mean it's time to hop into a intense conversation or a deep conversation. They may be decompressing, they may be working, they may be whatever, they may be doing something. So if you're the speaker and you want to have that conversation, you need to ask your partner, hey, I have something I want to talk to you about. Is now a good time? Ask them first so they can get their mind set and ready to make sure they're focusing on you. And so when you get that, okay, the person who's listening, the yes partner, right? The listening partner, you're going to remove all distractions. Turn off your phone, turn off the TV, turn towards the person. If you have a notepad to take notes, do that. Really, that could be really helpful in focusing on understanding where your partner is coming from and taking down notes. Really, really important. All right. Something else you can do, and you do this in the empathizing stage, right? You're asking open questions, right? What, how, when, where, questions like that. Do not ask why. Why can be accusatory. Why can make someone feel like they have to justify their feelings and things like that. So you don't want to ask why. What, when, where, how. Questions like that, right? You have examples right here, like what made you feel that way? Instead of why are you upset? Even the way I just said it, like why are you upset? Like there's no need for you to be upset. Right? Please don't dismiss your partner's feelings just because you think you wouldn't feel that way in that same situation. Right? Don't do that. Say what's bothering you, what's causing you to be frustrated, or that matter of fact, don't even say the feeling, because sometimes we may look at someone and we say, oh, you're feeling this, or why are you upset, or why are you mad, or what's making you mad, or what's making you upset. And they may not be upset or mad, but because now you said they are, now they start to become that. So just say, hey, what's going on? You might be if you are really just like, but I gotta say it, right? Then say it like this. Hey, babe, you seem frustrated. You seem tense. You seem annoyed. You seem frustrated. Yeah. Is everything okay? Now, you're not saying that they are. You say, hey, it just seems like that. You can even add this on. Seems to me that you're that way. Not saying you are, but it seems to me that you're that way. Is everything okay? Take that approach. Asking those open-ended questions. It's so important, right? Not yes, no, and not why, but open-ended. Again, what, where, when, how. Those are great questions to ask your partner as they're telling you what's going on, right? Reflect and paraphrase, right? And verify understanding. This right here, this is the S part. This is the summarize and confirm, right? So you're going to reflect these things back. If obviously it's a longer conversation, you might have more to condense. And then, okay, hey, can we pause real quick? I just want to make sure I understand where you're coming from at this point. Oh, hey, and then boom, and then confirm with them, right? So you're getting along the way. All right. So, and then of course, verify for understanding. That's just confirming with them. Hey, is that right? This is what I heard. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying? Is that where you're coming from? And so again, do not switch roles. Do not switch speaking and listening roles until you are fully understood. Right. And I will say this, not every situation requires a switch. But there are many situations, especially when there's misunderstanding on both sides, that where it does require understanding from both people's perspective, so that we both understand where each other is coming from. Right. All right. So now we're going on to the speaking part, the SERR part. Okay. And again, SERR is situation, emotion, reason, request. Okay. And so the situation, describe the facts, the objective facts of what happened. Here's an example. When I saw the dishes in the sink this morning, or in the example we used before, you know, yeah, when you were on your phone this evening, right? You make sure it's an objective fact that anybody could look at and say, yep, he was on his phone. Yep, the dishes were in the sink. Not acting, not, you're always leaving the dishes in the sink, or you're just wasting time on your phone. You were playing around this morning and think, no. Objective, objective, objective. That means what objective means is that it's the same across the board. Doesn't matter who looks at it. I saw you on your phone this evening. I saw the dishes in the sink this morning. It's really critical to make sure when you state the situation, you state it objectively. Why? Because if you state it objectively, there's not blame and there's not accusations, because you don't want the person to become defensive. We'll also talk about you statements later on as well, because it's critical, because a lot of times we use you statements instead of I statements. Then you statements automatically flip the dynamic. Whenever you use a you statement, you flip the dynamic, you make it about them. Now you become the listener unintentionally. And now because you think they're defending themselves, the reality situation is that's because you use a you statement and turned it on. But again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. I don't want to go too far track here. So the first thing, situation stated objectively. The name and emotion. All right. Not, I feel you're a jerk, or I feel you're stupid, or I feel you're lazy, or I feel you don't care. None of those are emotions. None of those are emotions. Those are all thoughts and accusations and contempt. That's what those all are. An emotion is an emotional word, a feeling word. I felt frustrated and overwhelmed. I felt sad. I felt hurt. I felt happy. I felt mad. I felt, whatever, confused, disgusted, jealous, envious, whatever it is. That's what you put in this part here. It's got to be an emotion word. Now, I will say this real quick. Now, some of you may say, Keith, it doesn't feel natural to say the situation first. I want to say I feel and then the emotion and then the situation. Listen, you could switch that. If you want to start with the emotion first and then do the situation, please go right ahead. But the rules don't change. It's got to be an emotion and it's got to be objective. And like I tell my clients, the reason why I have it set up this way, well, I won't go into the full story, but there's a reason why I have it set up this way. It's an experience that I happened, and I realized that the problem is the problem. The person's not the problem. And if I focus on saying the situation first, objectively, then it comes across a lot easier, right? But in any case, you could switch these if it's easier for you. Again, the whole purpose is not to force you to follow my formula to a T. The whole purpose is, can you convey your message properly without making the other person defensive? Can you convey your message in such a way where they get the message and then understand it and can respond accordingly? Right. Plus, SERR sounds a whole lot better than SERR, so with ESRR. So, yeah. So in any case, emotion, use the actual emotion word. Name specifically what you felt. If you struggle with identifying what emotions are and what they feel like and the symptoms, please reach out and let me know. I have an emotions wheel I can send to you. I have some other emotion resources that you can get where you can actually go through and look at it. I'm also building out an emotions course as well. And some resources to help people be able to identify emotions, because it's very difficult to convey a message if you don't understand some of the things within that message, such as your emotion. Your partner, it's difficult for them to show up for you if they don't know how to show up for you, because you can't name what the emotion you're feeling is. So I don't want to belabor that point, although I probably already did. Reason, right? This explains, why it matters to you, right? So because I value a clean kitchen and feel we should share responsibilities. right? So the reason is where you're just kind of expressing, hey, this is what this is what this means, not just what this means to me, but this is, I guess it is what it means to you, right? Like why it matters, right? So this is what you want to make sure you put in there, because it explains to the person, right? Your partner explains to them what has generated this feeling for you. So you want to put that in there, right? Because a lot of times our partner, our significant others, our partners, right? They'll respond a certain way, and we don't understand why they're responding that way. We don't know what it means to them. And I'll be honest, this part right here can be a whole lot deeper than just value in a clean kitchen. It can go back to something when you were a child. It can go back to something that happened to you as a child, whether it was abuse or, a certain type of treatment, the way you came up, or whatever the case may be. All right. So you got to make sure you have that part in there as well. The reason, that's the other R. And the request, this is important, and it's really important to just lock in on this one real quick. Your request needs to have a solution that benefits both parties, focusing on shared outcomes, right? That's what it says here. The reason why I say this is because when we're in a relationship, when one person wins, we should both win. But when one person loses, we both lose. And there's been many times where someone in a relationship feels, and I'll be honest, it's a lot of men, you feel like I have to give up everything. I can't share my emotions. I can't share my feelings. I can't share my thoughts. I just got to be a pack mule and just do whatever she says, right? Not the way it's supposed to be. And there's other, there's nuances in there as well. However, when we make requests and it's just one-sided all the time, it feels like I'm just giving up and, I just have to just do everything for the other person, right? And it feels one-sided. The problem is the request that you're fulfilling is not one-sided, because when you're in a relationship and you're pouring into your other person, your significant other, it benefits both people. So with that being said, when we propose a request, we should state it in such a way as to how it benefits both people. Me meeting your request, this is what's going to do for us. So check this out. Could we work together to keep the kitchen tidy so we both have a more relaxing space? It wins for both of us. Oh, shoot. Yeah, I do want to relax. I do like a kitchen being clean. I love being able to go in there in the morning and make my coffee or make my pre-workout or my protein shake or whatever. When it's messy, yeah, it's hard to do that. Okay, yeah, I can do that. I can meet that request. I want to relax too. Make sure you're putting your request. Make sure you're putting in your request in such a way where both parties win. It's really, really important. Because guess what? When it comes to a relationship, there is no, oh, she won, he lost. If one person loses, both of you lose. You have to understand that. If one person loses in a relationship, both of you lose. Think of it like this. Right. If you guys are on the same team, you guys are on the exact same team, and you guys are taking a test, right? And one person has one half of the test, the other person has the other half of the test. What happens if one person fails their half of the test? You already failed. It's over. You already failed. You're already 50% already if one person fails. Right. Now, what happens if both of you guys get it in? You get 100%. You both win. You both succeed. So it's the exact same way when it comes to this request. We have to put it in such a way where both of us are going to win. And when you show up for me like that, or, when we connect like that at night, you make me feel like I'm important, makes me want to be closer to you. It makes me want to have more intimacy, or makes me want to do things for you. It makes me want to show whatever it is. When we feel like we're considered a relationship, it draws us closer to the other person. Of course, we want to be close to someone who is considering us and thinking about us. So again, make sure the request that what you propose, then it shows that benefits the whole relationship as a whole. All right. So again, situation, name it objectively, emotion, actual feeling word is what you say there. I feel. And again, if you want to swap those two because it's more comfortable for you, go right ahead. I'm not going to be the police in your relationship, right? As long as you get the message out. Share your reason, right? It could be something as simple as this, or if you want, it could go deeper, right? This could be a very good opportunity to learn more about one another. And the request, make sure the request that you propose benefits both parties, or you state it in such a way where it's going to benefit both parties. Because if you say it the right way and you guys do it, it will benefit both parties. All right. Next slide. Okay. Slide up here. Okay. So I'm just gonna read this example. Okay. So before, this is blaming. You never help with the kids' bedtime routine. You sit there on your laptop while I do everything. You're so selfish. Now you were just going all in on this person. Yeah, whatever message you were trying to convey, which is probably I'm frustrated, I'm tired, I need your help. And it would really be so helpful. And it means so much to me if you could just help me with the routine. That's probably the underlying message. This ain't gonna get you there. This is going to get you into an argument. This is going to get you into a fight. This is going to get you a shutdown. This is going to get someone walking out on you. That's what that's going to get you. And unfortunately, a lot of us, this is how we talk. You never, you always, you're lazy, you're selfish, you're a narcissist, you're this, you're that. We have all these colorful terms. Now, ask you the question, how has ever using those colorful terms gotten someone to actually understand you, accept you, and meet you where you're at and fulfill whatever needs you had? It doesn't. It doesn't. Because even if they do it begrudgingly, they're not going to be connected to you. They may come and help you, but they're not going to be connected to you. And why are you upset? Why are you mad? See, I can't share my feelings. I can't do all these things like that, right? You start doing all those things like there. Again, that's why we want to move from this to this, right? Now listen, when I'm handling the entire bedtime routine alone, that's the situation. Objectively, are they handling all the way all alone? If someone were to look and see who's taking care of the kids at night, would they see that person taking care of the kids all by themselves? The answer is yes. That's objective, right? I feel exhausted and resentful. They're the emotions, exhausted and resentful, right? Because parenting should be a partnership. I need support too. Okay. This is their belief. This is what they're thinking. Hey, we're supposed to be working together. I need support. Could we create a schedule where we each take turns or specific tasks with the kids at night so we can both be less stressed and more present for better family time? That's a request. See, not just does it benefit them, but also benefits the whole family. That's what it looks like to reframe that message. It's so much easier to respond to this because your husband or your wife might look at it and say, yeah, no, you do it all by yourself. You do a great job, but I see how you're stressed out. Yeah, and exhausted. And I definitely want you to be resentful. You're feeling resentful, I don't want you to feel resentful. Yeah, we're definitely in a partnership, Boom, you could go through all that, empathize, summarize it back to them. So what you're saying is, when you're doing the bedtime routine at night, when you're by yourself, you don't feel like you're supported, that's making you feel like that's just draining you, right? Because you've probably been doing it all day and you start feeling resentful because you feel like you're alone in this and you didn't sign up for that, right? And you want me to kind of either, do the schedule or participate in the routine, take the edge off of you, so we can both kind of be less stressed, right? Kind of take something off your plate. Is that right? So I just added a yes in that, right? See how I summarized that? I empathized, I summarized. I already yield the floor because that was the talking beforehand. But that's what it looks like. That is what it looks like to use this. So many of your messages, I'll tell you this right now. There are so many messages we're trying to convey in our relationship, in our marriage. So many messages that get lost because we're not conveying them the right way. So many needs going unmet. So much closeness being lost, so much time being lost because we're not going about it the right way, simply because we're doing this, the blaming, we're doing that instead of doing this, right? So this is what I want you guys to be able to start putting this into practice, all right? It's so critical for you to put into practice. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, the magic of I language, right? So remember I was talking about you statements before, all right? So yes, they trigger defensiveness and conflict, but I need you to understand this right now. When you use a you statement, you are switching positions. You are making the other person the speaker. It's not what your intent was, but that's exactly what you're doing. You never take out the trash. I'm not talking about what I feel. Think about it now. Think about this. You're using a you statement. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about you. So if I'm talking about you, then your response is to talk about yourself. So when people get defensive, and we get mad and say they're not listening or they're making it about them or things like that. Well, that's because you just made it about them. You gave them the floor. You said this is about you. You don't take out the trash. So now when they say, yes, I do take out the trash. I took out the trash last night. I took it out last week. I took it to the road this time. Oh, you're being defensive. And this, you're not listening to me. You don't care. What are you talking about? You just said I don't take out the trash. I'm just telling you how many of your conversations have gone like this? And you're confused as to why. You're confused as to why this conversation was flipped and now it's about the other person. Well, I'm here to unconfuse you, clear it all up. It's because when you use a you statement, you're making the conversation about that person. And a lot of times what happens is you say, oh, yeah, I don't yell, I don't scream out on this, but you'll spend a whole conversation using you statements full of blame and accusation and criticism. And it's hit after hit after hit after hit after hit for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and you wonder why someone blows up, or you wonder why they shut down, or you wonder why they stop talking, or you wonder why they walk away. How many times can you get punched in the face before you say enough's enough, and then you blow up? That's what you statements do. Don't use you statements. Use I statements. The SERR method. Use that. Again, I feel unheard when we talk. See, that's the flip, right? I feel unheard when we talk. When we talk is a situation, right? When we talk, I feel unheard. You can flip it either way. All right. Just a little example. All right. And yeah, it's been research and all that fun stuff, right? It reduces hostility because, again, I'm focusing on me. I'm not telling you anything about you, right? So please stay away from you statements as much as you possibly can. Now, I used to be dogmatic, like, do not use the word you anywhere in the SERR method. Nowhere. You should state it objectively and generally. But I'll be honest, it's hard to do that. But if you can objectively state when you're on the phone in the evening and you said that you were going to spend time with me, it makes me feel hurt. It makes me feel sad. It makes me feel lonely. That's an objective thing. Remember, it's objective. So if you're using it in an objective way, and I'm not making it about you, I'm just saying you are part of this objective statement right here, this objective situation that took place. So just keep that in mind. All right. Yeah, let's move on. Now, the four horsemen. This is by Dr. John Gottman. I did not make this up, right? I just want to give all credit to the Gottmans and their researchers and their friends, the people that they work with, that have done all the work to get to this point here, right? And I thank God for them because they have done a lot of work, pioneers in the field of relationships. So there are their flowers. But something that they found, right, in relationships that causes a lot of issues are what they call the four horsemen. These are the toxic, I don't know what word you would use, behaviors, communication patterns that you would see in a relationship that damage and destroy relationships wholesale, right? The worst of these being contempt, but we'll get into all that in a second. So first you have criticism, right? The two communication ones are criticism, defense, and contempt. The two listening ones are defensiveness and stonewalling. Let's break them both down, all four of them down. Criticism is when you're attacking the person's character, and here are the examples. You're so lazy. You're selfish, you're a narcissist, you never help with anything. You just sit there while I do all the work, and you never these never and always. If you're using never and always in a relationship, in a conversation, you're doing criticism. If you're saying you're so lazy, you're attacking them. You're so lazy, you never help. Remember, all these are you statements, so you're making it about them, right? So if you're doing that, there's any blame, accusation, criticism, things like that, that's what you're doing here. You're attacking your partner. Do you really think the best way for them to receive you, to listen to you, to hear you, do you think the best way is to attack them? Obviously not, right? You have to, I think the Bible says like a soft tongue breaketh the bone or something like that, right? So if you're using the SERR method, using I statements, you're talking about yourself, and it's like, hey, I'm upset when the trash isn't taken out, or when the trash isn't taken out, I become upset. Either way, see how it works either way? That's going to get you so much further than attacking your partner and attacking their character. That's never going to help you. And I know a lot of us are negative sentiment override, another Gottman term that they use, but essentially you're just negative. All you think is negative about your partner. They can't do right in your eyes. You don't even see any of the good that they do because you chained all these bad events together over the years, and you built up this resentment and this hardness in your heart, so that even when they do good, you find a way to make it bad. So this criticism, it builds that over time, right? So you got to be really careful with that. More careful. Don't do it. You shouldn't be doing any of these, any of them in your relationship at all, at any point in time, ever. So the second one, the most deadly one, is contempt, disrespect, mockery, sarcasm, sense of superiority. You're attacking their intelligence, things of that nature. You censure saying, I am better than you, and you do it through all these means. This is really, there's no place for contempt in any conversation, ever. There's no room for contempt anywhere, at any time, at any point in a relationship, in a conversation. And I'll be honest, those of you, this is me as well, that are witty and sharp, contempt comes very, very easily. Very easily. And I'll be honest, I know for me, that is something that not that I struggle with, but I did struggle with, where because I'm so witty and I have these quick comebacks. And so when the situations would go bad with my own relationship, my own marriage, I would go to this more than anything else. I'll be honest. And it's only by the grace of God and, learning and the Gottmans and reading and putting the skills into practice and, and making this method, this yes, sir method, was able to finally put an end to this and stop doing that to my wife, because it wasn't healthy and it wasn't good. But contempt is, again, the disrespect, the mockery, the sarcasm, but ultimately a sense of superiority, like I am better than you. Like you're too stupid to do this. So I could never expect you to handle everything. You're incompetent, so yeah, it makes sense. That's why you can't do it all. That's never going to get your message across. And usually they herald, when you start doing it like that, and that's your constant go-to, not even when you're having an argument, whenever they say anything at all, that's your constant go-to, your relationship is in a lot of trouble. Because again, like criticism, you can only take so many hits. Contempt is the same way. Eventually people get sick of it. They don't want to put up with you. So no contempt, no criticism. We'll talk about the antidotes in a second as well. Defensiveness, right? This is when you don't want to take responsibility for your actions, or you're counterattacking, right? It's not my fault. You never reminded me. Or you were supposed to have done that, or someone else did it, or, why you always, and here's another thing about defensiveness as well. And this is actually, I didn't put it on here, but I need to. It's when you make yourself the victim. Well, I just can't do anything right. I'm just a huge mistake. You should just leave me, and what ends up happening, and then you take that further. And then the other person's like, I didn't say that. What are you talking about? And then now you get yourself all emotional, and now they're trying to comfort you. And what you just did was you manipulated the situation so that now you don't have to take any blame or accountability for your actions, because now they're comforting you. That's a part of defensiveness as well. You beat, and again, we'll talk about the antidotes in a second. I don't want to jump the gun, but this is what defensiveness looks like. You're always defending yourself and protecting yourself. And there's a lot of times, because of past hurts and traumas, you're actually protecting and defending yourself when you're not even under attack. All right, so that's defensiveness. And stonewalling is just when you shut down, and usually it happens when you become emotionally overwhelmed. You don't know what to do, or you're scared of what your response is going to be because you're going to blow up, or you feel like, hey, my words or thoughts don't even matter. So this shutting down, I used to believe, and I will say this. Actually, I made a video about this as well. And while contempt is the number one thing that destroys a relationship, stonewalling, but like real stonewalling, where it's like, I don't want to open up and share anything at all, that's heralding the end of your relationship as well. Because if someone doesn't feel safe in a relationship to open up and share and be themselves, they feel they got to shut down, and you just run the show, and you come with them with the criticism, and you're always, why are you always shutting down this and this and that? And you're making fun and all these things like that, the mockery, and they just keep shutting down. You're going to push them away, or you're going to push them into the arms of somebody else. Right. So, and again, we'll talk about stonewalling and how to undo that. But generally speaking, right, what I was just talking about was the extreme forms, right? But generally speaking, it's when we become overwhelmed in a relationship, in a conversation, and we shut down and we refuse to engage, right? Okay. Here are the antidotes, right? So criticism, a gentle startup, right? Gentle startup, again, that's a Gottman term. So you want to use a SERR to discuss the specific behavior, not the character, right? So again, to use all the different examples, hey, when the trash isn't taken out when it's supposed to be, I become upset because the house starts to smell, and I don't like when a house smells. Could you please take out the trash so we can both live in a house that doesn't smell bad? We can both breathe easy, and we don't have to have the trash around for a whole nother week like we did last time. Again, gentle startup, use the SERR method, the I statements, really important to use those. You don't have to worry about criticism. If you use the SERR method, you won't have to worry about criticism. Say it one more time. If you use the SERR method, you will not have to worry about criticism, which means more often than not, you won't have to worry about defensiveness. So that means you'll actually be resolution to your issues and problems. Okay. Contempt, right? The antidote to that is appreciation. I cannot stress enough how you need to be looking for the good that your partner does on a regular basis. No, looking for the good doesn't erase the bad, but what it does is it gives you a balanced approach to who you're dealing with, because I can guarantee what you do right now is just chain all the bad together and ignore all the good, or discount the good. I can guarantee that's what you do right now. 100%. 100%. In your mind, your partner's a monster. In your mind, they can't do right. In your mind, they will never change. In your mind, they're a narcissist or whatever. Well, of course, if I chain even all of your behaviors together, you would be a monster as well. I told my wife that the other day. I said, if we took all the evil and bad we've ever done in a relationship, right, and wipe out all the good and just chain it all together, we're going to be a monster. All of us. How do you keep from us becoming monsters? By showing appreciation, gratitude, fondness, kindness, and affection as much as possible. The Gottmans say there should be a 5-to-1 ratio, 5 good to 1 bad, or it should say 1 bad wipes out 5 good. Right. So you need way more good than you do bad. And there's a biological reason behind that as well. Won't go into all that, neuroscience behind that. But long story short, you got to make sure there's a culture of appreciation. That means you are looking for even the smallest minute detail that your partner does. You're saying, hey, I appreciate you for doing that. This is how it benefits my life. Or I love when you do that. Or, oh my gosh, the way you dress, or the way you smell, man, it's amazing. Oh, the way you did your hair, I love it. Oh, you're so cute. You want to lavish your partner and pour on lavishly. Words don't cost you a thing, and they will give you the world. Build the culture of appreciation and gratitude and love and kindness and fondness and affection, and you will not have to deal with contempt. And that means the most deadly of the 4 horsemen will have no effect or no place in your relationship. Defensiveness. Take accountability, personal responsibility for your actions at all times. If your partner is saying something and you listen, take and accept responsibility for whatever parts you play. If you did something objectively, if you were sitting there on your phone the whole evening, own that. Yeah, no, you're right. I was sitting there the whole evening. If you didn't take out the trash, you know what? Yeah, babe, you're right. I didn't take the trash out. I didn't do that. Own it immediately. By owning your behaviors immediately, right? And I'm not talking about cutting people off like, yeah, okay, I did it. Not like that. I'm saying if they're bringing it up and talking about it, it's coming up in conversation, and as you're empathizing, remember, because you yield the floor, you're empathizing. You know what? Yeah, babe. I could see why that bother you. Hey, I apologize about that. You're right. I did say that. I didn't mean to say it like that, but you're right, babe. I did say it. I can understand why it make you feel that way. Own it. The sooner you own it, the sooner your conversation can come to a resolution. Because when you own it, the person's like, oh shoot, they do see me, they do care. Oh, they are listening. Okay. And then you can start working towards changing the behavior. You must change the behavior, right? If you were supposed to take the trash out, take the trash out. All right. So in any case, let's continue. In stonewalling, because it's about you getting overwhelmed, you need to make sure you're self-soothing, right? Very important. You got to make sure you're self-soothing. Maybe taking some deep breaths. If it's too much, to call a timeout. Like, babe, hold on. I'm at this point right now, I'm really overwhelmed. I need to take 20 minutes. no shorter than 20 minutes, a minimum of a 20-minute break where you go and distract yourself doing something else. Go for a walk, go breathe, play a video game, go for a run, go work out, whatever. Do something to distract your mind from the conversation, then come back to it. 20 minutes minimum, no more than 24 hours. And if it's late at night, because they're always saying, oh, never go to bed angry, never go to bed angry. What you need to make sure you do, right, is say, hey, listen, it's getting late. Because guess what? If you're tired, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of HALT before. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Those are the worst times to have conversations. So if you're tired, that's probably the best time to try to talk about a deep conversation, even using the yes, sir method. You probably should wait till the morning. You know what? Hey, listen, I'm exhausted right now. I got to get up early for work in the morning. Let's plan to talk about this tomorrow after work. All right. But here's the important part. You got to make sure you come back. It is critical. You make sure you come back, because if you don't come back, it makes you a liar, and it's going to make it so they don't want to let you go again in the future. Right. So stonewalling, you got to self-soothe, take no less than 20 minutes and go relax, build yourself back up, get your mind right, distract yourself, and then come back to the conversation at the appointed time. All right. All right. All right. So I'm just going to go through. There's going to be some exercises for you to do. Obviously, you're not going to do them during this presentation, but you want to incorporate it in your daily routine, maybe in your weekly meeting, maybe in your debrief, or whatever time you have together, date night, whatever. But you're going to want to start practicing some of these skills, right? You find the time that works best for you, but make sure you're consistent with it. Okay. So you got the 5-minute daily listening skill, right? And this is something that you can do, right? And you could definitely do it if you debrief on a regular basis, which you should be debriefing on a regular basis. You could use this, right? And I'll just read off here. So you set a timer for 5 minutes and practice the yes technique on simple, non-controversial topics, right? So one partner is going to share something about their day. Your job is to listen, yield the floor, no distractions, empathize with them, engage fully, summarize, right? There's no problem solving, no interrupting, just listening. Again, summarize, verify what they're saying. Hey, did I get this right? Is this what you're talking about? Is that what that means? And then switch roles, right? It says switch roles the next day, but honestly, you should be doing this as a practice every day you guys get together in the afternoon, right? Listen, it's 5 minutes, one person, 5 minutes. That's 10 minutes. You can spare 10 minutes to practice listening to one another, not trying to solve any problems, but just listening to one another and debriefing about your day, all right? Again, so start with easy topics to build a skill before tackling difficult conversations, right? So again, debriefing about your day is a great way to do it, because you can listen, you can tune in, you tune in, you could empathize and then validate, and then you could summarize and confirm, right? So again, take turns doing that, and promise you, once you master this skill, it becomes a lot easier to use later on. All right. All right. I'll read this here. The exercise, this exercise builds your listening muscle in a low pressure setting, making it easier to use when tensions are higher. All right. One moment. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, let's go on the next one. All right. So exercise number 2 is the weekly SERR practice. Right. So I want you guys to schedule it. Pick a time during the week. We should listen. And we're not going to get into this in this presentation, but you should have a time every week where you guys are talking about how the week has been, anything that might have been bothering you, and you're debriefing about it, right? You're able to name some things that were good and show gratitude, appreciation, talk about an issue you had, the other person talks about an issue they had, then you kind of do something that's, like a hug and a kiss, something like seal the deal or whatever, then you move on. It should be about an hour, right? But this is where you can put the I statements into practice. So you pick a spot, right? Again, it's a regular 20-minute slot, but really you should have usually an hour weekly meeting, right? Every week to keep the finger on the pulse of your relationship. Again, we're not going to go into this presentation, but it is a resource that I do have for couples who are interested. Start small, right? Choose minor annoyances, not major conflicts. There's another strategy when it comes to major conflicts that has a few different steps, same listening, same speaking, but a few more steps to help really process some old unresolved issues. So start small. But here's the thing. Once you get through a lot of those old issues, or again, if you're looking for that resource, I can get that to you. We can talk about that. But once you get through all of those, hypothetically speaking, let's say you don't have any old unresolved issues. If you're doing this, you're talking about things before they become big, before they become embedded, before resentment builds in, so that's what you're going to be doing. And again, using yes, sir, is going to help solve that really easily, right? And again, use the formula: situation, emotion, reason, request, right? And I'm not going to belabor that point. We talked about that before and what those all look like. And then give each other feedback. How did it feel to use or hear the SERR statement? Like, how did it feel? Like, did you feel like you were heard? How the other person feel on the other side? Did it feel weird for them? Was it different? Like, man, usually you come in like a wrecking ball, but this time I really understood where you were coming from. Talk about how that made you guys feel. Why? Because if it feels good, your brain wants more of that. If it feels good, it's going to be more embedded. So the more you do it and the better it feels. And a lot of times I even find myself saying to my wife, like, wow, there's certain conversations that we just had that would have been a blowout fight before, and it feels good. And so what happens, right? You start doing the good thing over and over and over again. And then you're no longer using you statements. You're only using I statements. Now you guys are having better conversations. Now you're understanding one another more. Now you're able to meet each other's needs more. And now, like I gave you the example of communication being that car's fully functional and it's traveling, it's on its way. Now, whatever comes up along the way, you have a vehicle to help you get through that and navigate that. Any detours life tries to throw your way, you can now use the vehicle, communication, in order to still get to your destination safely. All right. All right. Exercise 3, catching and reframing you language, right? So, all right, the challenge. So for 1 week, catch yourself when you start a sentence with you in a complaint or a criticism. And then reframe it. Stop mid-sentence, take a breath. We start with I feel, or I noticed, or when this thing happened, and then follow the rest of the SERR structure, right? You start the situation, the emotion, the reason, request. And check this out. Check this out. You can bring a conversation back if you make a mistake, right? If you start off, let's say you got the whole you statement out and the person gets defensive and you recognize that, then you stop. Just stop, right? You know what? That came out wrong. That came out completely wrong, and I apologize. That wasn't fair to you. That was a criticism. That was a blame. That was an accusation. My apologies. That came out wrong. It's not what I meant to say, right? So you catch yourself. You pause. Or, and what I just did, you just own it. I shouldn't have said that. That was wrong of me. Right? You're taking responsibility. That was wrong. I shouldn't have said it like that. I'm new to this. Give me a second. Let me reframe it. Let me do it the right way. I feel frustrated when the garbage piles up, or when the garbage piles up, I feel frustrated because I value a clean home. Could we create a schedule on taking it out? Now, because you took responsibility, because you paused, because you stopped, you then didn't make it about them. It was about to be about them. They were about to start defending themselves, but because you stopped and said, that's not the message I was trying to convey, I brought it back and you fixed it. Now you gave them the right message, and then now they're able to respond appropriately. All right. Practice that. Practice that. You can always stop yourself. You find yourself communicating the wrong way, stop yourself immediately. Call out what you're doing wrong. Own it. My bad. I shouldn't have said that. Or if let's say you're listening and you start talking in it. Oh, you know what? I'm not even supposed to be talking right now. My apologies. Please go ahead and finish. That's my fault. My bad. I'm sorry. Right? So the exercise 3, make sure you practice that, right? Exercise 4, the horseman detox. For 1 week, keep a private tally of how often you notice the 4 horsemen in your communication. Right. So try to track it, right? Just, again, 4 columns. If you catch yourself using any of them, just put a tally, put a mark, right? Here's the thing. Once you notice it, though, pause and try to use the antidote instead. Remember, either a gentle startup, reframe in that case. There should be an abundance of appreciation and gratitude at all times, taking responsibility, and self-soothing when you need to, right? At the week's end, review which patterns are most common for you, and then set a specific goal to reduce the most common or most frequent pattern. So essentially what you're doing is you're trying to see. So for me, for an example, if it was more contempt, then I would be like, dang, I got to stop doing that. It means I got to use more appreciation and gratitude with my wife. I got to find more of what she's doing right and point that out and show my appreciation to her. Or if I was stonewalling, I'm like, man, I kept shutting down in all these conversations. You know, what's going on? You know, maybe it's not even about, maybe the conversation isn't necessarily stressful, but maybe I'm so stressed out from something else that I'm shutting down. So essentially what this is going to do is you identify exactly where your weakness is. And now you can put a game plan in place to deal with it specifically. Because maybe you don't suffer from all the horsemen, maybe just one in particular. Now you know how to attack it and target it so that it's not an issue or problem for you anymore. All right. So troubleshooting common challenges. And I'm not going to read everything, here, but so when emotions run high, that's what I was saying. Call a timeout and walk away. Call a timeout and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what I'm experiencing. I'm becoming overwhelmed. I can't do this right now. However you would state it. I'm overwhelmed. I'm flustered. I'm about to lose it. I need to stop. I need to walk away, right? Go off and distract yourself. We talked about the stonewalling. Go off, distract yourself, do something else other than what you're doing right in that conversation. Don't think about it. Don't stress about it. Go and do something else, right? Okay. All right. So this one, when you hit resistance, right? If your partner isn't receptive to this approach, so let's say you're the only one doing the work, start by using yourself without announcing it, right? Either the yes or the SERR, right? Use without announcing. I did this with my wife as well, right? Because then you start changing. And that's the critical part about this. I need you guys to understand this. Do not take this and throw it in your partner's face. See, you're not doing it, and you're not doing this, and oh, you did a horseman, and this and that, and that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Your responsibility. If you guys are watching this together, I'm telling you right now, your responsibility is to incorporate this for yourself, to use when it's appropriate and when you need to. Right? Because if you're learning how to listen, to understand, and not respond. And we'll talk about boundaries. I don't know if we'll talk about boundaries in this presentation because boundaries are important as well, teaching people how you want to be treated. But I'm just saying, you got to make sure you are learning and incorporating these skills for yourself. Do not look at your partner and say, you're not doing it. I'm not going to tell Dr. Keith, you're not doing it. No. That's not what we're doing, right? We both need to take responsibility for our own actions, behaviors. We make sure we put these skills into practice, right? And if you see improvement, acknowledge that. Find the good. If you see, okay, you didn't get as mad this time, or you didn't yell, or look for the small improvements. Stop looking for a home run. A base hit's good enough. If it's like, okay, the conversation lasted 15 minutes instead of 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour, I'll take that as a win. We didn't blow up and yell this time. I'll take that as a win. Hey, we were starting to get into it, then we stopped. I'll take that as a win. Right? Look for those small incremental changes and let your partner know if you see them doing something right. Right? Right. Invite. And again, I said this before, in the beginning with the yes, ask for participation. Ask your partner, is it okay to talk? Or if you watch this by yourself, ask, hey, I have this information I'd love to share with you that I think will make our relationship better. Invite, don't demand, you better do this, you need to do this, or we're not doing that. And again, like I said, focus on one small element at a time. Small incremental changes over time will make massive changes over time as they compound, right? All right. So when old habits return, you slip back into your own old patterns, recognize without shame or blame, and recognize that some old habits are hard to break, right? But repair quickly. Let me try that again. My bad, my fault. Hey, I didn't mean to say it like that. Whatever. Repair it quickly, right? And then reset using the yes, sir method. And remember that new habits take time. And listen, if you need to bring out the sheets, if you need to bring out the yes sheet and you need to bring out a sir sheet, bring them out. All right, I'm the listener. You're the speaker. This is your sheet. This is my sheet. Let's go. Let's have the conversation now. If you need help with this and use AI, hey, we need to use the yes, sir method, and this is the situation I have. And you can be as detailed as you want. And AI will help you craft that into a sir I statement method, right? Okay. And obviously, yes, just you use that. That says you listening again, yielding the floor, no distractions, open-ended questions, reframing, verifying, things like not reframing. I'm sorry, verifying, summarizing, and confirming. Right. So you're just doing that. And just remember again, old habits are hard to break, and some things, I know the Gottmans talk about enduring wounds or old triggers or things that are just so embedded in us they don't leave. Being able to recognize those things and isolate those to know what they are is going to go a long way for you, because then you know how to work around that. Like think of it like a oyster or a clam, whichever one makes pearls, and how the sand gets in their whatever their little thing is, and it's an irritant. And so what they do is they coat that little piece of sand with all that stuff, and it makes a pearl, right? And so it's kind of like the same thing with the enduring wounds. Like if I know what your enduring wound is, I'm going to know how to coat that. I'm going to know how to operate around that, and so that now it's not going to be a factor that there was a conversation off. Right. But you get there by having good conversation with each other, understanding each other, learning about each other's past and history and how they came up and how they grew up and what the things happened to them, because how we operate. Sorry about that, guys. A lot of how we operate, comes from when we were younger. So once you know that, you know how to work around that, you can still have good, healthy, productive conversations. You can even help your partner soothe after a while. And if you are layering on that appreciation, love, gratitude, appreciation, kindness, fondness, if you're layering that on thick, again, like the pearl, you're layering on thick, it's gonna be so much easier. It's gonna be a massive buffer for you, so that we don't become so reactive, even if an enduring wound or old trigger or something's triggered in us. Right? Yeah. All right. All right. I'm not going to go through all of these guys, because I'm going to send you the presentation. I'm going to send you this. I'm also going to send you this so you can look through it yourself. Because I know we're kind of running a little bit, I don't know, we're running late, but long story short, guys, the words you create, your words create your relationship. Again, it's the vehicle through which you increase intimacy. You can have children. You can build your finances. You can start a business. You could travel the world. You can do anything if you have your communication down pat. Like, you got to, I think it's down packed, but don't worry about that. But your communication is so critically important. You got to master it. You've got to master it. You've got to take it serious. If you care about your relationship, if you truly love your wife, if you truly love your husband, you're going to take this seriously. If you really love them like you say you do, if you love them like you did on your wedding day, if you love them like you did when you proposed, if you truly love one another, you're going to take the time to invest in making sure your communication is rock solid, is to make sure that you don't miss, because that is how you connect. That's how you convey your message of love to one another, with proper communication. You must master this. I cannot stress that enough. Cannot stress it enough. And so this is just reviewing everything, making sure you listen first, using the yes, speak responsibly, using the I statements, using the SERR method, doing practice on a regular basis. You should be checking in, and you guys should be having conversations on a regular basis, learning more about one another on a regular basis, and guys, you're going to transform together. You're going to transform together, and your relationship is going to be like nothing you ever experienced before. Because the thing is, if you have proper communication, you're smart enough. I know each and every one of you is smart enough to know how to solve whatever your issues or problems are. That's never the issue. The issue is always, I cannot communicate my thoughts and feelings and emotions. I can't communicate that to you, because either you don't know how to listen, or I don't know how to speak, or vice versa, right? You're trying to talk to me, I don't know how to listen, you don't know how to speak, whatever it is. But if we get that down, there's nothing we can't do, and there's no height to which your relationship can reach, and there's no depth of intimacy that you guys cannot acquire. And that's it, guys. That's the end. And again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, please feel free to let me know. Again, I will send you a copy of this presentation. I appreciate you joining me. Guys, I hope you have a great, awesome, and blessed day. And again, if you ever need anything, please let me know. All right. All right, so I'm gonna stop that. Y'all have a great and blessed day.